The Helios 44M-4 is one of, if not the most produced lens in the world. Manufactured between 1958 and perhaps 1999, this lens is the go-to for amateur photographers and videographers that are not shy with using vintage lenses as their main lens on their camera. The lens used in this review is a Helios 44M-4, manufactured in 1986 in what was Soviet Russia. There were multiple factories that made these lenses, but thanks to the symbol painted on the front of the lens, I know that my lens was made in 1986 in the Zavod factory near Moscow, which is still running today, but you might know it as simply Zenit thanks to their Zenit product line. This lens has seen a lot of usage and a lot of life, hence why it looks like it has been buried for some time before I dug it out. But I can't complain, because inside this rugged metal casing are a couple of lenses that are in near perfect condition, and the price, well, can't complain about that either. While other Helios 44 lenses can be had for around $40 in very good condition, give or take, this lens cost me only $4. Yes, 4, not 400, not 4 million, just 4. It actually costs me nothing because I did not pay for it. The previous owner was selling it for the local equivalent of $4. However, he or she absolutely refused to ship the lens to me. So I had to ask a friend to buy it for me as he was in the same area as the previous owner. And of course, that friend bought it but does not want me to pay him back for it, so I'll just buy him some alcohol instead. Perhaps then he'll accept it. However, this lens might be made in the former Soviet Union and have a build quality comparable to some Second World War tanks. More on that later, by the way. However, this lens has its origin in Germany. You see, the Helios 44 is based on the German-made Carl Zeiss Biotar f2 58mm lens, and by based I mean it's a direct copy that somehow ended up being somewhat better in the long run from a sales perspective. This happened back during the World Wars when Germany was split into two, the eastern part of the country being under the Soviet occupation, and thus the German Carl Zeiss Biotar 2 58mm was easily copied and remanufactured as a Helios 44 lens series. The Helios 44M4 has a minimum focusing distance of 0.55 meters and 8 aperture blades, with a focal distance of 58mm. However, this will vary based on what model you get. This lens also has an aperture range between f2 and f16. f22 came much later with the newer models. Let's start with the main features of this Soviet-era lens, the build quality, and the Helios 44 is no different. This Helios 44M4 has seen a lot of action, including me dropping it right about now. But I found it in the grass, and fortunately it looks just as good as before, not even a scratch on it added, thanks to this fall. Lucky me. The Helios 44M4 is made mostly out of solid metal with some bits made from hard plastic. For example, the aperture selector ring feels like it's made from hard plastic, while everything else is solid metal. From the factory, like many other lenses, the Helios 44M4 has a click-style aperture ring. However, my lens has been declicked at some point, either intentional or someone wanted to clean it and lost the metal ball that was doing the clicking movement. This is nothing uncommon, and it is a desired modification for amateur videographers. For me though, it's somewhere in between. I don't mind the smooth aperture selection as it offers another layer of options for video productions. However, it is very easy to move the aperture ring by mistake if you are holding the camera by the lens, so keep that in mind. But that's about enough with the lens and its history. It's time to see how it performs, and in my case, it means that I will use this lens with an adapter, one made by K&F Concept, as it was accessible in terms of pricing and it's made entirely out of metal. With the lens installed, it's easy to see why this model is so popular across the entire photography landscape, no pun intended. It's easy to use, and more importantly, it's sharp, even wide open. It has a decent level of sharpness, but when stopped down, it gets even better. However, the Helios 44M4 or the entire Helios range of lenses are known for one simple thing: surely bokeh, which is not as easy to get as you might think. The distance between the object and the background must be a specific one, and on a case-by-case scenario. In addition, this swirly effect will only happen with the lens wide open at f2. Going back to its sharpness, that's how this lens is, of course. All photos you see are unedited apart from a bit of cropping. Your results will differ as my camera has a custom profile setup that takes photos and videos as flat as possible. Why? Because it's much easier to add contrast and saturation rather than have to lower them or remove them entirely. The Helios 44M-4 is very easy to use and so enjoyable. It's solid and easy to understand. The focus at first was stiff, but a few drops of wristwatch lubricant made it spin much easier. Also, there's the bokeh. Of course, I did not manage to get that awesome swirl effect, but the bokeh though, it's soft and the balls are fairly round. Overall, it's a nice background for your subject, and at this price point, there's nothing that comes close. The Helios 44M4, this particular Helios 44, is one of my favorite lenses, not because it was cheap, or in my case free, but because it can deliver stunning photos and video footage. It's easy to use, solid, robust, and honestly speaking, it's a nice piece of conversation. While doing some street photography with it, I got stopped a few times by people to ask me what lens this was, as it is rather small and has an unusual shape thanks to its metal focus ring. And that's what matters in the end. Yes, it's sharp, yes, it has character, but in the end, it's all about the experience of using it. And a lot of people don't realize that many photos are taken with a lens that is over 20 to 30 years older than me. And that's great. I got a sharp lens for cheap or free, yes, but I also got a lot of character with it, and that is all the difference these days, where everything is sharp and perfectly in focus. We've somehow forgotten that it's not the sharpness level that matters the most, but what message our photos deliver to those that see them. I was thinking of completely restoring my Helios, take it apart, clean it up, lubricate it, and perhaps paint and fix the scratches it has. But I changed my mind, because this lens is not new, it's old, and it survived for that long for me to use it. Those marks are there for a reason, and that's why they will stay there for as long as I will own this lens. And at this rate, I will forever be owning it, because it's just a solid little lens that will always deliver a good photo. If you like this review, then you might consider subscribing for more, and if you want to support me in a direct way, then in the description below you will find the links for both the Patreon and the subscriber pages of this channel.